In 2003, a Navy SEAL named Marcus Luttrell was lying alone on a mountainside in Afghanistan. He had been shot multiple times. His entire team was dead around him. He was dehydrated, bleeding, and completely cut off from help. Most people would have broken right there. Later, when he was asked how he survived 8 more days while being hunted by the enemy, he said something strange. The hardest training he ever did wasn't physical. It was learning to control his mind when his body was screaming to quit. 2,000 years before that mountain, a Roman emperor discovered the exact same truth. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, but his life looked nothing like power should feel. His children died, one after another. Plagues swept through Rome while he was emperor. Generals betrayed him. Wars never seemed to end. Every day he carried the weight of millions of lives on his shoulders. And yet, in a private journal he never intended anyone to read, he wrote one sentence that explains why some people break and others don't. You have power over your mind, not outside events. I used to think that was just another motivational quote you post online and forget a few minutes later. Then life gave me a few things I couldn't control. A message that never came back. Plans that fell apart. People who left without explanation. And I realized something uncomfortable. I wasn't suffering because those things happened. I was suffering because I kept arguing with reality. I kept wishing things were different, and that fight was exhausting. That's where mental strength actually begins. Not with becoming fearless, not with becoming emotionless, but with accepting what you can and cannot control. You can't control whether someone likes you. You can't control if someone leaves. You can't control the economy, your past, or what people think of you. Most suffering begins the exact moment we start fighting things we were never meant to control. Epictetus understood this better than almost anyone in history, and he wasn't writing from comfort. He was born a slave, beaten, treated like property. And from that position, he said something that changed millions of lives. It is not things that disturb us, but our opinions about things. Someone ignores your message. That's an event. Your mind deciding it means you're not important. That's a story you wrote yourself. And here's the scary part. Most of our lives are controlled by stories we never stop to question. The Stoics did something that sounds almost insane today. They practiced discomfort on purpose, sleeping on the floor, eating simple food, walking in the cold, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they wanted to prove something to themselves. If I can handle this by choice, I can handle anything that arrives without my permission. Modern life has made many of us comfortable, but comfort and strength are not the same thing. We've become so used to convenience that even small inconveniences feel like disasters. A delayed text, a bad comment, a canceled plan. Sometimes it doesn't take much to ruin our entire day. The Stoics trained for hardship before hardship arrived, because they knew something most people forget. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your preparation. There's another lesson they understood that might be the most important one of all. Between something happening and your reaction to it, there is a space. Most people collapse that space to zero. Someone criticizes them, they react. Someone insults them, they explode. Someone disappoints them, they make a decision they'll regret later. One message, one emotional reaction, one impulsive choice that costs years of peace. The Stoics trained themselves to live inside that tiny gap, because inside that gap lives your freedom. The strongest people are not the fastest to react. They're the ones who can pause long enough to choose their response. And if you pay attention, you'll notice something strange. The people you admire most are rarely the loudest people in the room. They're the calm ones, the steady ones, the ones who seem impossible to shake. Not because life has been easier for them, because they've learned not to give every event permission to control their emotions. Seneca said something that feels even more true today than it did 2,000 years ago. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about how much of your stress this week came from things that actually happened versus things you imagined happening. A conversation you replayed 100 times. A future problem that hasn't happened yet. Something someone might think about you. For most of us, the imagined version wins by a landslide. We spend so much of our lives fighting battles that never even arrive. And then there's the lesson that sounds dark, but might actually be the most liberating idea the Stoics ever taught. Memento mori. Remember that you will die, not to become pessimistic, not to become afraid, to wake up. Because once you truly understand your time is limited, something changes. You stop wasting years on grudges. You stop trying to win every argument. You stop performing for people who are too busy thinking about themselves to even notice. You stop postponing the life you actually want to live. Suddenly, the little things don't feel so big anymore. Marcus Luttrell, lying on that mountainside, was living the same principle the Stoics wrote about 2,000 years earlier. The body breaks. Circumstances become unbearable. Life becomes unfair. And then one question remains. What will your mind do next? Mental strength isn't built in the moment everyone is watching. It's built on the ordinary days nobody sees. The morning you didn't quit. The conversation where you chose patience over anger. The setback you turned into fuel instead of an excuse. The disappointment you survived without becoming bitter. Again and again and again. Until one day, life throws something at you that would have destroyed the old version of you. And it doesn't. Not because you stopped feeling pain, not because you became fearless, but because somewhere along the way, quietly and without any dramatic moment, you became the kind of person who trusts themselves. The kind of person who knows that no matter what happens next, you'll handle it. The world doesn't stop being hard. You simply become harder to break.